This is the Comics Alternative, episode 226, a look at the February Previews catalog. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And this week, Andy and I are going to be looking through the February Previews catalog. But before we get to that discussion, we want to let all of you know that this episode of the Comics Alternative is brought to you by the great folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off of the cover price, and every single month, you're going to find some incredible specials. Sometimes those specials could be as much as 45% off the cover price, sometimes as much as 50% off cover, but every now and again you can find discounts that are even more impressive than that.
That's right, and since this is our previews show, you can check out the new offerings at dcbservice.com, and I'm sure you'll find many of the things we talk about today deeply discounted there.
That's right. You can't go wrong with the people at Discount Comic Book Service. Their website is dcbservice.com. Please go there for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your comics there, please send them an email and tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you.
That's right.
Well, Andy, here we are, the second Wednesday of February. Now, last week, which is the first Wednesday of February, we didn't do our preview show. In fact, we did I can say quite popular episode devoted to a couple of socially conscious and protest comics. We looked at the anthologies Love is Love and then Resist! And that episode got quite a number of downloads. I think more than the average does, and so that's really good.
Oh yeah, that's great to hear.
Yes. But before we get to previews, we've got a couple of announcements to make, and in fact, they're in one way or another kind of related to some of this stuff dealing with protest and socially conscious issues.
Okay.
Yep.
So what happened?
Okay, well, we got an email today, in fact, from the people at Birdcage Bottom Books, and you can check them out at birdcagebottombooks.com. That's one long word, birdcagebottombooks.com. And they are, for the month of February, having a deal where 50% of sales will be donated to the American Civil Liberties Union when you purchase a book from their site. Now, Birdcage Bottom Books, I believe they publish their own things, but they also offer for sale a variety of other comics as well from other creators and other publishers. So, for instance, you can find titles there from people like Alice Longstreth, whom we've had on the Comics Alternative before, Glynis Fox, Jesse Lonergan, Josh Baer, Kevin Butnick, who spoke with me at SPX, and a variety of other creators, as well as smaller presses like Grindhouse Comics, Hick and Hock Publications, Sap Books, and then, of course, our good friend Dan Stafford at Kilgore Books. And so they just have a great selection to choose from, and if you go to their website, birdcagebottombooks.com, in the month of February and purchase something, they're going to send half of that to the ACLU, so it's a great cause.
Yeah, that is a great deal.
Mm-hmm. And we also got a bit of listener mail that I'd like to share with everyone.
Okay.
Mail time.
Ooh, the mail's here. That means we get to see our old friend, Mailbox.
And you remember last week at the very end of the episode where we were looking at the socially conscious and protest volumes, we invited people, if they attended the Women's March a couple of weeks ago, to get in touch with us and let us know about their experience. Well, actually, one of our listeners, and I think she's a very dedicated listener because she tweets and retweets us all the time, Alice Yaggers, contacted us via a social media platform that we rarely get much communication, and that is Goodreads. We do have a Goodreads page, and Alice sent us a message on there, and she wrote, I just finished listening to episode 225, reviews of Love is Love and Resist. I enjoyed it. To respond to your request, I did attend protests. I attended the Women's March. I also attended 2 protests this last weekend, one of which was to protest the immigration ban. Also, I did vote. I think it is vitally important that you stand up for what you believe in. It is important that your voice is heard. Even if the politicos don't agree with you, if enough people make themselves heard, change is possible. Recently, a bill that would have sold off federal land was rescinded due to popular outrage. Let the truth be heard. Don't let yourself be silenced. And then she concludes by saying, thank you so much for the podcast. I enjoy listening to it immensely. Keep it up. So,
well, that's
thanks,
great.
Alice. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Alice.
I mean, not only does that get me all excited, what she says about making your voice heard, but it's also really good that she follows the show and really enjoys what we do.
Yeah, that is. I appreciate that, and I appreciate getting that that response to our request.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in fact, if other listeners attended marches, actually the past several weeks now, this is going to be an ongoing thing. Let us know about your experiences. And because as you could tell, Andy and I are rather dedicated to certain social issues, and we'd like to hear, even if it has nothing to do with comics, just get in touch with us and let us know about your experiences.
That's right. Yeah, I'd appreciate that too.
And I think you have something to share with the listeners as well.
Okay, so I just got back yesterday, in fact, from visiting family in Wisconsin. And I was talking to one of my nieces, and she told me a story that's relevant to us. Mm-hmm. So she said she was, I think it was at a bar, and there was a guy sitting next to her she was talking to, and he said he was a graduate student who was into comics, and she said, oh, my uncle is is an academic who deals with comics too. Maybe you've heard of him. And she said my name, and the guy responded, no way, I listen to this podcast all the time.
Good.
So she wanted to share with me that our fame extends, I guess, to Milwaukee. And so if this person who had this encounter with my niece is listening, you can stand up and identify yourself if you want, or just know that you're listening to the podcast is greatly appreciated.
Yes, it is. So does your niece refer to you as Unca Kunka?
No, nobody has ever done that before. It is Uncle Andy. That's no. I would not. There would be no Christmas presents for any nieces or nephews who called me that.
Because I think that'd be cool.
I don't.
And on that note, let's head on over to the February Previews catalog. And where do you begin, my friend?
Oh, I begin right away at the beginning of Dark Horse.
Okay, so page 46?
Yeah. And so, this is probably the biggest thing in Dark Horse is the return of Jeff Darrow's Shaolin Cowboy. Mm-hmm. In a new miniseries titled "Who'll Stop the Rain?" REIGN. And so, this what I don't know what else there is to say except this is, it's great to see Jeff Darrow's Shaolin Cowboy return. It's hopefully going to be a big big, sprawling, violent, crazy experience like Jeff Darrow's other stuff has been.
Yes. I really enjoy Shaolin Cowboy, and the thing I like most about it, of course, is Darrow's art. If you're wanting story, then it may not be for you, because outside of fighting and a lot of cutting and blood and gore, there's just not much plot, but that's okay.
Yeah, but the one-page sample that we get is basically three vultures discussing the feasting opportunities they're going to be getting from what looks to be like a massacre on the ground in this desert where they live.
Yeah,
and so that is a fun conversation.
Yeah, you see in that sample the Shaolin Cowboy nowhere at all.
No, right. Nor do you actually get other than the cover, which is violent on its own.
Right.
But you don't get the signature violence either. But it's a lot of humor.
There's some violence there. Their heads cut in half and bloody
that's what I said on the cover.
The cover. Oh, I'm sorry.
But on the sample page there is.
That's right.
It's just these vultures talking about, I'm so delighted we passed on that raccoon back there on Interstate 8, and so they are deciding on what they're gonna eat, I guess, out of these piles of dead bodies that are on the ground.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good one. And I don't have anything in Dark Horse until page 61. If you have anything before that.
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to mention, we don't normally talk about like the licensed properties that Dark Horse does, like Aliens, but on page 51, I did want to highlight the new Aliens miniseries, Aliens Dead Orbit, because this new Aliens miniseries is done by James Stokoe, and I love James Stokoe's stuff. And if anybody's gonna go nuts on aliens, it's probably him. So I'm looking forward to that also being a kind of violent gore fest, as stuff, this is my famous Orc Stain series holds up to that. Also
with a variant cover by Jeff Darrow.
Yeah,
and
I think their sensibilities are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
including drawing, kind of highly detailed action scenes. Okay. So where do you go?
61.
Okay.
And a couple things on 61. One is the next volume of the EC Archives Crime Suspense Stories. And, as listeners know, I always point these out because I think it's a great series that at first Gemstone, then GC, and then now Dark Horse has picked up. And I guess Dark Horse is going to go to the very end in publishing all of the EC stuff, the classic EC archive. So Crime Suspense Stories Volume 3 is going to be coming out in a few months. And then on that same page, 61, there is issue number 33 of Dark Horse Presents. And there's always good stuff in Dark Horse Presents, but unless something special is going on or something catches our attention, you and I usually don't mention Dark Horse Presents on our preview show. It's like one of those things that, it's ongoing, and we, for the most part, don't highlight much in terms of already ongoing comics. But this one's notable because on the cover is Shannon Wheeler's Too Much Coffee Man, a character I really enjoy. And so I wanted to point that out because it's also linked to something else that comes up in the Dark Horse section of previews that I'll get to in a moment.
Okay.
I
don't have anything else in Dark Horse, so go to whatever you got to talk about.
Okay, so I'll take it from here. On page 65, there is the expanded edition hardcover of Faith Erin Hicks's The Adventures of Superhero Girl. And this is something that I've heard about many times, but I've never read. Are you familiar with this?
Nope.
Okay. This is something that I don't know if I'll get this, but it's something that I would like to get if I had world and money enough and time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to check this out. So it's a expanded edition. I don't know exactly what that means because I'm not familiar with the Adventures of Superhero Girl. But Faith Erin Hicks is doing more and more stuff, and in fact, we're going to mention her one or two times, or I am, on this episode.
Okay.
So that's something I think that's worth checking out. And then if we go a couple of pages later, we have The Life and Times, and this is on page 67, The Life and Times of Martha Washington in the 21st Century, and this is a second edition trade paperback, and of course this is by Frank Miller and Dave Gibbons. So,
yep. Yeah, I have all those individual issues, and but for 600 pages for $30, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it is. I think I have all of the individual issues as well. I'll have to dig them out. I haven't seen them in a while. But you're right. That's one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this is it's a really good deal. 600 pages. It's a big tome and only $29.99.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out.
Yep.
And then if we turn the page to 68, the aforementioned reference to Shannon Wheeler's Too Much Coffee Man, and this is Too Much Coffee Man Omnibus Plus. So this is, again, a 600-page tome, hardcover, so it's going to be weightier for $29.99. So it says the deluxe hardcover featuring 32 new color story pages, and I'm sure that whatever's in Dark Horse Presents is going to be in here as well. This 600-page Omnibus Plus edition features 5 previously published Too Much Coffee Man books, plus an all-new color section. These semi-autobiographical, hyper-intellectual tales will appeal to both comic book insiders and pop culture fanatics. It's the most complete Too Much Coffee Man collection. Now, are you a fan of Too Much Coffee Man?
No, I haven't really read much of it, so I might end up checking this out for that price and that size.
Yeah, it is really fun stuff. I highly recommend it. And I've got several of the books. I don't have all of the Too Much Coffee Man stuff. I've got some of the floppies, but I've got, I think, maybe 2 or 3 collections that he's done. And we, Gene and I even, a few years ago, interviewed Shannon Wheeler on the podcast. And we talked a little bit about Too Much Coffee Man, but not too much.
Right.
Yeah. But that is all I have in Dark Horse.
Yep.
And then we get to the next section, DC Vertigo. And I have to tell you, I've only got one page that I'm wanting to highlight, and that's almost in passing in this section.
I have nothing, so go ahead, whatever
you
want to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, I skip almost to the tail end of this section. This is on page 151. And I guess I'm mentioning this. I think normally I wouldn't if you and I had 2 or 3 things in Vertigo and DC or Young Animal that we would want to mention, I wouldn't mention this. But because I didn't have anything else, I was like, okay, I'll mention at least something in Vertigo. And so on page 151, they're coming out with reprints of collections. There are 3 of them worth checking out. It's a trade paperback of book 1 of the Books of Magic. They're releasing that. And then, they're doing all the Hellblazers in these nice uniform trades. And so volume 16, the wild card, Mike Carey stuff, is being solicited as well. And then the trade paperback of Neil Gaiman's Free Country, A Tale of the Children's Crusade is also solicited on that page.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what I'm curious to see what that includes, because it says it's the 2-issue miniseries plus a new chapter written by Toby Litt. But in looking at the number of different creators that are involved in this, I'm wondering if this is also including not just the 2-issue miniseries. I guess all those people were involved in the 2-issue miniseries, but that 2-issue miniseries bookended a series of annuals in the Vertigo universe at the beginning. That included, Books of like the very first Books of Magic annual when the series was supposed to be called Arcana, and then Animal Man, Doom Patrol, and some others. I think Swamp Thing as well. And so I'm wondering, it doesn't seem to be big enough to be including all that stuff, all the annuals, but I'm curious to know what is actually going to be in it, because it seems bigger than the 2 issues.
Right.
But maybe smaller than including all these massive annuals that came out that same year.
Yeah, it's 208 pages according to the solicit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if this sounds familiar to listeners, we probably mentioned this a while back because this is being resolicited. When I first saw this, I was like, that looks familiar. And then I noticed right above the solicit, it does indicate that this had been canceled. The previous orders that have been placed have been canceled, and so they're resoliciting this, which, happens every now and again.
And I'm glad that you mentioned above that Books of Magic is getting collected in these larger size paperbacks with 13 issues. So that includes 13 issues 1 through 13, the short story in Vertigo Rave #1, and that Arcana Books of Magic annual that I was talking about. So at least that's in there. And one of the reasons why I'm glad that that Vertigo's doing this is I have a lot of scattered collections of Books of Magic, but I don't have them in sequence, and they're kind of hard to find now. So I'm glad for that. One quick thing to mention, I forgot to do this, but on page 149 and 150, 2 Vertigo series are ending this month. The Clean Room has its final issue with issue 18, and Unfollow also is coming to its end with issue 18. And of those, Unfollow is the only one I'm reading.
Yeah. I like both. I've let it go. But these are the last of that wave of, I can't remember how many titles.
Yeah.
From what about a year and a half ago now?
Well, Lucifer's still going.
Oh, that's right. Lucifer, and that was part of it as well. You're right.
Yeah, but
in a way, I don't even. I mean, I know it was launched at the same time, or about the same time. It's just I don't consider it part of it because this was a previous title that we had just coming back.
Right, and I was liking Unfollow. I mean, that's the one I've kept reading, but it seemed clear in the most recent issue that Rob Williams had to rush through to the end because part of that series involves there's these 140 people who are supposed to inherit this money from this billionaire named Larry Farrell, and throughout the series they've been sometimes slowly, sometimes very rapidly, those 140 people are being eliminated. And suddenly with this most recent issue, the book jumped ahead a year. And there's only like a handful of people left. So it went from having something like 86 people left to having very few people left in this most recent issue. And I felt like that jumping ahead a year must have been kind of them getting Rob Williams and Mike Dowling getting a chance to wrap the book up, but having to fast forward it quite a bit in order to do that.
Yeah, kind of like a weird twist on Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to see where Vertigo goes now. Of course, we've been saying this for the past few years. I mean, they don't have many ongoing titles now. But there's Astro City. You mentioned Lucifer. They have that new series that was, at least the first issue was solicited last month, Justin Jordan's Strange Things. There's Ever After. What else?
Well, Savage Things, but the Justin Jordan series is a mini-series.
Yeah, but I mean, it's something that's still going on, or will be soon.
But so really, the only ongoing series are Astro City, Lucifer, and Ever After.
Yeah, and maybe I'm being negative, but who knows how long Ever After will be around? I don't know what kind of reception it's getting.
Yeah, and so maybe for a while now, Vertigo's going to be largely just kind of putting out collections of some of its past stuff.
Yeah. We at the Comics Alternative, we really like Vertigo. We're pulling for Vertigo. We're wanting it to reach its former glory. It's just they're having a harder time over these past few years.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what we'll see coming up from them. I know we're supposed to get a sequel to The Sheriff of Babylon. I don't know when that'll come out, but that's been announced.
Yeah. Wow. Well, actually, we did talk quite a bit about Vertigo. We started off by saying there's almost nothing in the DC Vertigo section we wanted to discuss, and we've been spending the past several minutes discussing Vertigo.
Okay. Well, it's notable that there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
I go pretty far into IDW before I get anything. So,
like what page?
176.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
The top shelf section.
Yeah, so there's two things here. The first one is the first volume of Campbell White's Home Time. And this deals with a couple of twins, Lily and David, who are out for the summer just before high school starts. And so this sounds like and then anyway they deal with some fantasy elements with these kids. So I thought that sounded kind of interesting. I'm not familiar with Campbell White's work, but the book.
Well, this is his first book.
Okay.
Yeah, because it says that at the bottom of the solicit, it's his spectacular first graphic novel.
Okay.
So yeah, I wasn't familiar with the name of Campbell White either, but the cover art looks really good. And the solicit that you alluded to, the premise seems interesting. And this is something that, I'm wondering if this is going to be an all-ages book, something that perhaps the guys who do the Young Reader series could discuss. I mean, I wouldn't mind discussing it, but it's something that they want to make check out as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering if Campbell White has done shorter works. This is his first graphic novel, so
right.
There may be some individual issues or something.
Yeah. He's Australian too.
Yeah. And then below that is the Nate Powell Omnibox.
You have to say it this way: Nate Powell's Omnibox, box.
You should have more sound effects in there.
Yeah. I don't have a mixer, so that kind of echo effect.
But this is basically a slipcase that includes Swallow Me Whole, Any Empire, and You Don't Say. So go ahead.
Oh no! I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And so if you're familiar with Nate Powell only from March, this is a good way to get his really good stuff, his the stuff that he both wrote and drew.
Right. And one of the things another thing that's notable about this, because it's Nate Powell, it's this boxed collection, that's notable enough. But looking at this, I was surprised that there are only these 3 books that Nate Powell has been the sole creator, writing as well as drawing. And I just didn't think about it. There's so many other works that he has done that he's illustrated. I mean, and not even if you discount March, there are others. And I just think of him as prolific, and he is as an illustrator. But when it comes to his own books, I just assumed that there were more than these 3. But yeah, there are these 3. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't realize it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But I can vouch for all 3 of those.
Yes. All of them are outstanding. And now when the first 2 came out, Swallow Me Whole and Any Empire, this was before we started the Comics Alternative.
Right.
But we did review the collection You Don't Say.
Right. That I think was on an episode with Gene.
Yeah. So, if you're not familiar with Nate Powell's own stuff, where he writes and draws, and you are a big fan of March, then definitely get this box set if you don't have any of these books.
Yes.
Where do you go next in IDW?
I just wanted to mention on the next page that we get the solicit for Gumballs number 2, because when we reviewed Gumballs number 1 recently, we were wondering what kind of schedule it was going to be on. And so we are seeing this, and the second issue solicited for the first time here.
Yeah. So I guess it's quarterly.
Yep.
Yeah. I go to 179 next.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is issue number 1 of 6 of Brian Clevenger's Real Science Adventures. On the cover, it says Atomic Robo presents Real Science Adventures. So I guess we can consider this a spin-off of the RoboCop world because it revisits characters that we've seen in previous Atomic Robo comics, the Flying She-Devils.
Right.
Yeah. A group of women Air Force Service pilots banded together after World War II became the daring Flying She-Devils.
Right. And I don't know, is this the second or third volume of Real Science Adventures?
I can't remember.
Yeah. But I think that's a nice side project to the regular Atomic Robo that Clevenger does, where he gets other artists to work with him on these shorter pieces that spin off some of the variety of characters from the Atomic Robo universe.
Mm-hmm. Now, Clevenger's doing the writing, but Lo Baker is the artist.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I go next to 181.
Okay, go ahead.
And there we have another big collection. This is The Rocketeer, High Flying Adventures. And so here he says, The Rocketeer Adventures continues where Dave Stevens' original masterpiece left off, creating for the first time new stories involving the ace stunt pilot Cliff Secord. The oversized deluxe hardcover collects all 24 stories by some of the most talented creators in comics. Now, what I'm assuming is that this volume pulls together all of those previous series that IDW has been doing.
Well, I don't think it's all of them. I think it's the two volumes of the Rocketeer Adventures that had the short stories.
Oh, okay. So just the adventures. Okay, that makes sense. But another thing about this solicit though that struck me as a little strange. Okay, let me ask you this: would you agree that Dave Stevens and his Rocketeer that's an important title in comics history?
Sure.
Yeah. Especially when we're talking about, let's say, post-1970s comics. Well, okay, it is, as we say at the very bottom of the solicit, 2017 marks the 35th anniversary of The Rocketeer. Now, wouldn't you think that a book like this, which celebrates the 35th anniversary, it's a hardcover, would be more prominently displayed?
I don't know. I never think about those things.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah. See, I have to deal with issues of layout and design.
Sure.
Every now and again. So, the podcast as well as my professional work. So, that's just something I thought, maybe they'd get more attention if they put it on a page by itself. But then again, that costs, and so the economics.
Sure.
Do you have anything else in IDW? Because I have 2 or 3 more things.
I go to 183, so I don't know if you have anything more than that.
Yep, that's where I go next. I'm sure you're highlighting the same thing.
And on page 183, we get a collection of Bo Hampton's Lost Planet series, which was originally produced in 1984. Mm-hmm. But this time it's in black and white, whereas the original series was done in color. But as the solicit points out, Bo Hampton's line art was done on craft tint duo shade board, a long gone tonal process not seen since the heyday of EC Comics. And so this is going to get this nice black and white treatment that's really gonna show off Bo Hampton's art, which I really like anyway. Now, did you read this series originally?
No, I didn't. I mean, this is something that I've heard about, but I just assumed you've read it.
I did. I don't have the issues anymore, and it's driving me nuts that I can't remember who originally published it. But the art is great. I mean, I like Bo Hampton's art anyway, but the art I think is really worth checking it out for. Let me see. It was the Eclipse. I was kind of gonna guess that anyway. This felt like an Eclipse series. So yeah, that's something I think that's going to be worth checking out. And I guess we didn't say much about the book, but it is, and this is what drew me to it when it came out. It's the hero Tyler Flynn is a fortune hunter who goes through this dimensional portal in the Andes Mountains and ends up teaming up with Ambrose Bierce and Amelia Earhart, two famous people who disappeared. And so it's an adventure featuring those three. Now, for some reason, I was, especially at that time, and sort of still am, I guess, a sucker for Ambrose Bierce disappearance stories.
Okay.
Because in another Eclipse series, Ambrose Bierce was a sort of a supporting character who showed up, I think, once or twice in Doug Munch's Aztec Ace. and then there was what was the name of the Carlos Fuentes novel, The Old Gringo?
Yeah.
That was made into a movie with Gregory Peck. So there was a weird period in that mid-'80s where like Ambrose Bierce was in the zeitgeist a little tiny bit. And so I think I got suckered into the Old Gringo movie and then got into this other stuff.
Wow.
And I had a professor as an undergraduate who had written a novel. He had completed a novel about what happened to Ambrose Bierce, and then the novel Old Gringo came out and he chucked it.
Oh.
So I felt bad about that. there could be more than one.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Now, let me ask you: were you interested in the book that's on the next page, 184?
The Toy Box Time Machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about this book. It's not a comic, right?
No,
it's
not
more
a comic.
It's more like a bunch of illustrated ads for fake toys that don't exist, but are designed to look like kind of 1960s toy and movie ads, tie-in ads. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, when I first read this, I thought, and I didn't list this as something that I would definitely want to bring up because it's not a comic, but it does look fascinating. And when I first read the solicit, I thought that maybe this was a collection of ads for toys that had been planned, but then were scrapped for whatever reasons. But I guess these are all made up, like recently, like a faux history.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because that was my initial thought. I was like, oh, this is a neat idea. Somebody kind of archiving toys that made it maybe to the advertising stage but never actually came out. And that doesn't seem to be the case, though. This is just Marty Bauman, the creator behind this, has an affinity for that the design work that was done in 1960s toy ads. Mm-hmm. And several of these look like they're meant to be movie or TV tie-ins for things that didn't exist either.
Like Kitty Change and the Agent of Mod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danger Team and the Morbids. So, so I think I like that design work too. So I'd be curious to see what this looked like.
Yeah, it looks interesting. And Bauman definitely has an eye for the kind of design that was common in the 1960s and then into the early 70s.
Yeah, that's right. And when I was a kid, I had a Man from U.N.C.L.E. radio that you could you unfolded it. I guess you would call it transforming now, the kids today.
Yeah,
and into a machine gun with a scope on it and stuff. that had the trigger that you squeezed and made the noise. I think it did anyway. I think it made a noise. Wow. But anyway,
NRA approved.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool toy to have to walk around. Like, it had a handle on the top, like the kind of radio that you could, not like a boom box because it only had a single speaker, but you carried it around on your shoulder, and then when trouble came, you whipped it open and took care of things with your machine gun.
Yeah. So, in your own way growing up, you were a gangsta.
I guess. Yeah, on the mean streets of rural North Dakota.
Now, on that next page is something that I definitely wanted to point out, and this is a new book in this new It's Alive imprint from IDW. Red Range, A Wild Western Adventure, written by Joe R. Lansdale with art by Sam Glanzman.
Yeah, so this, I guess, is the first official book from It's Alive, though it seems like some of the things have been done. That IDW has done some things that might be within that framework as well, or within that imprint, right. Because it's meant to be, and now I can't remember who the editor is of the It's Alive line, but he came over from Dover and is bringing these kind of reissuing lost series from the 80s and so on.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else in IDW?
Nope.
Okay. I just have one more, and this is on page 192, because, any time our friend Craig Yo at Yo Books has something in the Previews catalog worth mentioning. Well, I mean, anything he does is worth mentioning. Sorry, Craig. But like collections, primarily collections or new series, we mentioned this. And Volume 3 of The Complete Voodoo is being solicited. So it doesn't seem that long ago that Volume 2 of Complete Voodoo came out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I only got it a little while ago, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Yeah. I haven't gotten it yet.
Ooh.
Yeah.
One of those rare occasions where I get something and you don't. That's usually the other way around. Yeah, so then I go to Image, I guess, next.
Yes. And, as they usually do, Image is soliciting quite a number of new series or mini-series. And so it starts on page 196 with Black Cloud #1. Is this something that interests you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Black Cloud is written by Jason Latour and Ivan Brandon, both of whom are writers that I like. Mm-hmm. And drawn by Greg Hinkle, whose work I guess I'm most familiar with from the Airboy miniseries that he did with James Robinson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, they even list that toward the bottom of the page. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in this as well, and for the reasons that you mentioned. Although I do have to say, I'm not interested in it because of the way that this was solicited. Because it doesn't really tell you much. It reads, Zelda was born in a world of dreams, and hers burned bigger than anyone had ever seen. Now she's on the run in our world, the dreams broken in her hands. But the pieces are for sale, the rich and powerful are buying, and suddenly her world isn't the only place Zelda's running from. Okay, now, if that brief solicit, were included alongside page samples of Black Cloud #1, I think that may give me as a reader enough of a taste of what's going on here. But the only thing we get for actually most of the #1 issues in the Image section, we do not get the page samples. I guess they save that for Image Plus, which is unfortunate because, that's now no longer free. So I read this solicit, and I mean, it tells me something, but it is so ambiguous I mean, or it is just ambiguous enough to where I can't really put my finger on what the hell I just read. It's like, okay, it sounds interesting, but I mean, you can apply it seems like almost any genre to this or any scenario, and it would fit with this brief description. So, I mean, but I'm on board for the cover art and the creators involved, definitely. But if I had to go by just the solicit, I would go, huh? Mm-hmm. Do you agree, or am I being too picky?
No, I mean, I don't get much from that solicit. I think you're right. I didn't think about the lack of preview pages being an issue, but I see what you're saying there. And the cover itself shows the character Zelda, and she's got like a lightning sword, but she's standing in a New York subway station.
Right.
So there is a little like the sword itself is the only element of fantasy within that image. So, right. So the fact that the solicit is talking about someone from another world, escaping into ours, isn't really evident in that cover.
Right.
So, anyway.
Okay. And then if we turn the page, we get another number one, again without sample pages. Rose. The story is by Meredith Finch with art by, is it Ig Guara?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, did this interest you?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
I'm a little burned out on fantasy right now, and so I'm going to wait to hear if this what review kind of reviews this gets, and maybe check out the trade when it comes out.
Yeah, I agree with you. What you said completely. I'm fantasy. It's okay. It's not something that really pushes my buttons. I think it has to be done really well. Something like a Saga, which is also kind of a mashup of fantasy, sci-fi, and other things. This seems more straight out fantasy. Maybe I'm wrong there. But another thing that has me wondering is they're calling this series Rose. And when I first saw this, I was looking on the page to see if the name Jeff Smith was listed anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, so Jeff Smith's prequel to Bone, the legendary Bone, Rose. Rose, definitely not as popular as Bone. However, if you know Jeff Smith and you know Bone, chances are you've heard at least of Rose. And that's a fantastical narrative. So you're creating a new series. It's a fantasy. It involves a female lead, and it's called Rose.
Yeah, I did first wonder if this was a continuation of the character from Jeff Smith's work. But that definitely doesn't seem to be the case. So, when you talk about what kind of fantasy has to do for you to get you into it, it also, something like Rat Queens, I think fits into the sort of thing that I like, which is playing around with the genre, I guess, too, making fun of it as well as, investing in its conventions.
Right. Yeah. It redefining it in many ways, which is great. So yeah, that one I felt so about, and I guess similar to the next page, the solicit for Plastic number one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't list most of the new number ones except for one other one that comes up a little later.
Okay,
as ones I was going to be into. So.
Yeah. Now on page, what is it? 199. We have Redneck, number one, and this is by Donnie Cates, who just recently came out with the new series, An Image, God Country, with art by Lissandro Esterin and D. Kniffy. I'm not sure how you pronounce the last name, but I mean this looks interesting. Now, if I just went by the solicit in the front cover, then I don't know if I would be as interested in it because, okay, it has something to do with vampires. They're in a small town in the South, actually Texas. And the title Rednecks, and, there's something about, and maybe because I grew up in the South, I get kind of tired of this even backhanded glorification, sometimes it borders on nostalgia, representation of the South and redneckdom. Now, I do like the series Southern Bastards, but I think that Ahrens and Latour do flirt around with this kind of, and both of them are from the South, this sense of the South that is very different from my feelings and experience and images of the South. Which is, I think, more critical. And so when I first saw the solicit, I said, I don't know about this. But then the next page on 190 or 200, we have page samples. And I read this and I thought, okay, this might be something worth checking out because I like the art. It's interesting what's offered here. And so this is an example of what I was mentioning earlier, that if you have a sparse or not that attractive solicit and or cover with no page samples, not so good. But if you include the page samples, even if it's reduced size like we have here, because we have, 3 pages, or I guess 4 pages, one is a 2-page spread, crammed on 1 page, at least that's something.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I got from this description, enough of the series to know that it was going to be a kind of Southern Gothic vampire story that's playing on that the title is basically a pun, I guess. Yeah. On the idea of the redneck, but there's a lot of there is a lot of that stuff. I mean, I think Donny Cates is already working this kind of Southern Gothic vein with God Country anyway.
And isn't that also based in Texas?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I kind of just skipped over this because that wasn't something I was planning on getting.
Yeah.
Or at least waiting on. So
yeah. And another thing that attracted me to this is that according to what I assume is one of the first pages of this first issue, it says that this takes place in East Texas, Sulphur Springs. And that is not too far from where I live. And in fact, driving over the weekend, I drove to North Carolina where I am now, and I always drive through Sulphur Springs. So it's a small city. It's not much to it, but there you go, Sulphur Springs, something that's in almost my backyard.
One of the things I'm noticing with these solicits, because you mentioned the art by Lisandro Esterin and D. Cuniff, that images started for most of these, though not all of them, including the colorist as part of the art team. So, Black Cloud says art by Greg Hinkle and Matt Wilson. And Plastic says art by Daniel Hillard and Laura Martin. Well, Matt Wilson and Laura Martin are, the colorists on those series. But they're not being distinguished as such. They're being listed as part of the art team, and I'm guessing that's the same case with D. Cuniff, because that's the solicit says critically acclaimed writer Donny Cates and artist Lisandro Esterin. So it's curious. I don't know if that started recently or if I'm just only noticing it now.
I don't know, but we're kind of picking apart these solicits, I think, in interesting ways.
Well, maybe interesting. But the next book is the book probably I'm most excited about in the entire catalog, and that is Rock Candy Mountain #1, a monthly series coming from Kyle Stark. So this will be his first monthly book that he's writing and drawing. And Kyle told me about this book a year ago, and so I've been I was pretty excited to see it finally solicited. I knew he was going to do the book that he just kickstarted, the name I can't remember, the title I can't remember, and then go into Rock Candy Mountain. Anyway, This is a Rock Candy Mountain, for anybody who knows, is like the hobo paradise, right? It's
right, the big Rock Candy Mountain.
Yeah, and so this series features the world's toughest hobo searching through post-World War II America for the mythological Rock Candy Mountain, and he's going to have his fight his way to get there. Lots of hobo fights, so many hobo fights, and so I think knowing Kyle Starks' work with Sex Castle and even his earlier Ricky Thunder stuff and the latest stuff he's done, he likes to draw fight scenes, and he's really good at it, and especially comedy fight scenes. So this looks good.
Yeah, it does. And in fact, you mentioned that you didn't mention that toward the end of this solicit, it says that there's going to be a lot of punching, kicking, joking, and a ton of hobo nonsense. And the literal devil. Yeah, the literal devil. So, I mean, this not only sounds fun. I mean, I'm with you that this is one of the most exciting things in this month's Previews catalog. But I mean, I like it not only because it's Kyle Starks, maybe we can have him on the show again when this comes out, but because it deals with hobos.
Yeah.
Hobos.
And Kyle was telling me just how much deep research he was doing into hobos for this series. So
good. And you're not being ironic there.
No.
Yeah, and that's good.
And in fact, I'm going to, so this one does list the colorist. It lists Chris Schweitzer from the Krogan's Adventure series is the colorist, and so I may not be able to take credit for this, but I'm gonna sort of take credit for it because when Kyle told me about this series, it was at the Sumter Comic Art Symposium that I help put on every year, and you were there too. This year, and Chris Schweitzer was also one of our guests along with Kyle, and we were sitting in the hotel room when Kyle was talking about this, and so I have a feeling, I mean, I know Kyle and Chris knew each other before then, but I have a feeling that bringing the two of them together for that event sealed the deal on their collaboration in the series.
Well, now we definitely have to get Kyle back on the show and have him say that Rock Candy Mountain is brought to you by the Comics Alternative.
Well, I did it.
Well, I mean, for the Comics Alternative, right? Hey, listen, I've put my name on things before where I'm not listed. Well, not my name, but the Comics Alternative. But I did the stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
So your turn.
Okay.
But yeah, looking forward to this. It's gonna be good.
Mm-hmm. And then I don't have anything till 242. So if you have anything before then, go ahead.
Okay. Before then, on page 236, we have the completed AD After Death, and this is going to be a hardcover collection. And listeners know that, and maybe many of our listeners have been reading this, that Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire have been doing for 3 issues oversized individual issues of AD After Death. And, you and I have thought about discussing it on the show, but I think fairly early on we decided, since this is going to be just 3 issues, and then we won't have to wait that long for the collection, that if we talked about it, if we reviewed it on the Comics Alternative, we would wait until the collection. Mm-hmm. So now that collection is going to be coming out in May, so that would definitely be something worth talking about. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd like to check this out. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay.
Now, have you been reading AD?
I have the issues, but I haven't been reading them.
Yeah.
I have 2 of the 3, I guess.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And I think part of the reasons why I haven't picked them up is, I just assumed, I'm going to get the collection. But I wanted to get the individual issues to support as well.
Yeah, no, I haven't been reading my comics very regularly. I got several months piled up, so they're at the bottom of the pile because they're not the same size as the rest of the pile. Mm-hmm. So that's just the way things are going for me.
Yeah. And then I have one other thing before we get to 242. That's where you go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's definitely worth mentioning. But on 240, we have Saga the deluxe edition, Book 2. And so if you're a fan of Saga, as we are, you can get the individual issues, you can get the trades. I know a lot of people get the trades. I get the individual issues. I don't get the trades because I'm waiting for these nice deluxe editions. And so it's been a little over 2 years since Book 1 Deluxe came out, and so now we get the hardcover Book 2.
Mm-hmm. And they throw 18 issues in there plus some extra stuff.
Yeah. Now, Book 2, the cover was, I don't know if I'd call it controversial. I did hear a couple people say something about it. You had, what's the baby's name? I'm forgetting. In Saga, the young girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
But you have her suckling on her mother's breast. Yeah. And then on Book 2, you have her older but picking her nose.
Yeah, Hazel.
Hazel, that's it,
yeah.
Hazel.
Yeah, so Book 1 has
the narrator.
The breastfeeding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this next thing that you wanted to mention, I think, is for me as exciting as Rock Candy Mountain.
Yeah. So this is a new Street Angel graphic novel written by Brian Maruca and Jim Rugg and drawn by Jim Rugg. The solicit is not that descriptive. It's basically, if you've read any Street Angel, it could be describing any Street Angel story.
Right.
But I don't know if you follow Jim Rugg on social media.
I probably do, but I don't pay attention to social media feeds as much as I probably should. Yeah,
because he has provided a lot of the process stuff on his Facebook feed and maybe on his Twitter feed. I'm not sure, but on his Facebook feed, I've seen it for this book. Mm-hmm. So it's been fun to kind of watch that go along.
Well, I know that I'm friends with him on Facebook, and then we're following on Twitter and Instagram. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't pay attention to this stuff, so I haven't seen the process stuff you're referring to. I hadn't even thought about the fact that the solicit really doesn't tell you much. This is a case where I'm really familiar with Street Angel, so my immediate response was, "Ooh, great, another Street Angel story," and so that was good. But someone who is not familiar with, let's say, maybe Jim Rugg's work and sense of humor in general, but then specifically Street Angel, may look at this and not really know much of what this is about.
Yeah, but I think it's it's got fighting.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's it. Now I'm curious about the solicit is. Says it's 40 pages, but gives a price at $19.99.
It's a hardcover.
Yeah, is it? It says FC.
Okay, where are you?
Oh yeah, no, HC. Yes, it's hardcover.
Yeah, up at the top. Yeah.
So it's a 40-page hardcover.
Yeah, for $20.
Okay.
But you can get it through Discount Comic Book Service for a great discount.
Yeah. And I only wanted to just mention something on the next page, 243, that we're getting the collection of Surgeon X issues 1 through 6. And, unfortunately, John Watkiss, the artist on Surgeon X, passed away recently. So I'm curious if this volume 1, how much more of Surgeon X we're gonna see if a new artist comes on board.
Now, I think I took a look at the first issue and then didn't go beyond that.
No.
Not because I didn't like it, but just because there's just too much competing for my attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it looked nice. I wasn't really enthralled with the story enough to keep reading it, but I really I've liked Watkiss's art for a while.
Yeah, and it also got a lot of publicity because Karen Berger is the editor.
Yeah.
that's all I have in the image section.
Yep. So I go to the back half of the catalog.
Yeah. And where do you start?
I start on 262.
Yep, I do as well.
So that is
the Aftershock section.
Aftershock section, and there's a new series, Eleanor and the Egret, written by John Layman and drawn by Sam Keith. And we haven't seen any new Sam Keith art in a long time. Plus, John Layman is nothing to sneeze at, so that looks good.
Yeah, and there was a time where Aftershock was coming out with new things, fairly consistently.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen many new things lately. So this is notable for that reason. But I think primarily for at least for me, the reasons that you'd mentioned. Yeah, I think that, both of those creators are people that, I love their work. I follow the stuff they do. A lot of people may know John Layman from Chew, but, he's done a lot of mainstream stuff as well. And yeah, you're right. We don't get much new stuff from Sam Keith. Right now they're doing the Maximized, but that's just redoing a lot of the previously published Max.
Right.
And then on another, there's another, on page 263, new number 1 from Aftershock. I guess it's okay, but that's not one that I was necessarily really struck by. Mm-hmm. Were you?
No.
No.
So I go to 270 next.
Yep, and I think I know what you're going to say.
This is under Albatross Funnybooks.
Yeah.
So in addition to Hillbilly ongoing from Eric Powell, it looks like Eric Powell's also going to be publishing works by other creators, and this is Namwolf. The ad for it puts an apostrophe before Nam, so we know it's meant to be in Vietnam. So during the Vietnam War, Marty Spencer, an American soldier in Vietnam, finds out he's a werewolf, and so we got a werewolf carrying a machine gun fighting in Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah, this is notable for a number of reasons. One, just the premise is interesting.
Yeah.
Two, it seems something that would fit right into Albatross Funny Books, which in essence is Eric Powell. But I think it's even more notable for the fact that with Albatross Funny Books, as you mentioned, we're getting creators other than Eric Powell. And this is written by Fabian Rangel with art by Logan Faber. So...
Yeah.
That's good. Maybe we'll see more Albatross Funny Book publications in the months to come.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then I go to the next page, which is under Alternative Comics.
Right.
And this is James Kachalka's Peanut Butter and Jeremy's Best Book Ever. And I wanted to mention this, not because I would necessarily get this, although, I'm sure it would be good, and if I get it in my hands, I'm sure I'd have a good time reading it. But I wanted to point out that it seems like lately everything that you and I mentioned that is solicited by James Kachalka is not for younger readers. But this is kid-friendly because it has the stamp, kid-friendly.
Yeah, this is an old book.
Oh, so it's being resold. Okay, so yeah, I'm not familiar with this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense because there are a number of other things on this page under Alternative Comics like Lou and At the Shore that and seen but not heard that previously been published. So, okay.
Right. But the two new things under Alternative Comics here, Slasher number 1, written and drawn by Charles Forsman, who does Revenger.
Oh, that's right. You like that. I haven't read that yet.
I like Revenger a lot. So a new psychosexual thriller from the creator of The End of the Fucking World and Revenger. Christine is a data entry specialist discovering her sexuality and her penchant for blood. What is this monster brewing inside her? see as she is introduced to Joshua, a wheelchair-bound nerd with similar interests. So, yeah. So Charles Forsman, as he shows in Revenger, I haven't read The End of the Fucking World, but Revenger is, he can do over-the-top violence. So, and in a style that is, I think, influenced a bit by Frank Miller. And this is from Floating World Comics. It's part of the alternative comics umbrella.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad they I was going to mention that. I'm glad that they put it on the cover, and I'm assuming that this brand placement is on the cover of Slasher. Maybe it's not. Because sometimes in the alternative comics section, it's difficult to figure out which ones are in previews, which ones are alternative comics publications, and which ones are published by other small presses within that consortium.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. But, all good stuff.
Yep, and then the other book listed in here is Violence Valley by Jesse McManus, who created also The Whistling Factory, and this is a 56-page square book. It's 6x6, but it looks like it's kind of over the top, fun wackiness that could be good.
I don't mention anything until page 294. Do you have anything before that?
Yeah, I go to, I think, 287.
Okay.
I can't read my handwriting very well, so I apologize for that. Let's go to 287 and see. No.
Archie stuff?
Nope, it isn't. It must be 281 then. I must have blurred my 7 and my 1 together. So let's see.
Oh.
Yeah, the Andrews McMeel section. Just this Lunar Baboon, The Daily Life of Parenthood by Christopher Grady. An autobiographical comic about the daily struggles and humor of family life. So I just want to mention that as an example of, I guess, sort of autobiographical work. But I think this is a strip.
Yeah, because Andrews McMeel, they usually reproduce collections of newspaper strips. Yeah, and I've never seen Lunar Baboon in a newspaper.
No, I haven't either. The other one next to it is Pearls Before Swine, which I am familiar with. But I didn't know anything about Lunar Baboon, so I want to check that out. Okay, so where do you go?
Well, I just want to mention something on 294 because it's not really a solicit within. Well, I mean, it is in the comic section, but it's something that lures your attention to another part of the catalog that is soon after the comic section, and I thought that this was really nice, in a good way of capturing readers, and I'm glad that the people at Diamond did this. And so on 294, we see a really long half-page. Vertical panel, a staff pick, and they do this every now and again. And this one is of Hogan's Alley, issue number 21, and so it refers you to the solicit for you on page 478, which is outside of the comic section. But I think that that's kind of a neat way within the comic section of letting people know, and also. This is edited, put out by our friend, Tom Hodges.
Yeah.
So it's good that he gets attention, and they can mention now that it is an Eisner Award winner.
Yes, that's true. I don't have anything until Fantagraphics. So if you have anything before then.
Yeah, I've got a few things to mention. On page 300, there is something that I think both you and I have a copy of. I haven't had the chance to read it yet. This is under Big Planet Retrofit. It is Babybel Wax Bodysuit. It's a one-shot, and this is by Eric Kostiuk Williams. Jared and Brown at Big Planet Retrofit, they're always kind. We're eternally thankful for them. They definitely keep us in the loop when it comes to new publications. And so even if we don't ask for Big Planet Retrofit stuff, we get it. And so I can't remember how long this has been out, but we have copies of Babybel Wax Bodysuit, but it's just now being solicited. And I think I mentioned on a previous show, maybe last month, that there's something weird Jared was telling me that's going on with the solicits with Diamond and Big Planet Retrofit releases.
Yeah, I did read this. I liked it. It's a collection of shorter works. There's a really nice autobiographical piece early on where Williams talks about befriending a Christian in a message board group, kind of in the early days of that sort of interaction. I think it was in the group for Michael Turner's comic line, maybe it's Fathom Comics or whatever, I can't remember. But anyway, and Williams talks then about being gay and befriending a Christian, and created this interesting experience for him. And then he has some fictional pieces, including this, the story about I guess either like a Britney Spears type clone or something that in the far future, who's kind of learning about her identity.
Right.
So it's an interesting mix of short pieces. I do tend to like the autobiographical stuff a little better, but it's a good mix.
Then I next go to page 302, and this is in the Boom Studios section. This is issue number 1 of God Shaper, written by Simon Spurrier with art by Jonas Goonface. And also they have covers. One of the variant covers is by Sonny Liu, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I mention this, I don't know if I'll get it, but when I saw it, I immediately thought, hobo. Because of the apparent cover image. I don't know if this is going to be the final cover. Although the word hobo appears nowhere in the solicit. But the way they describe it is that it says, let me see. It introduces a vast world where there's a god for every person and a person for every god. Though for Ine, unfortunately, exceptions may apply. People like him are god shapers, godless and social pariahs with the ability to mold and shape the gods of others. Paired with Bud, an off-kilter but affectionate god without a human, the two travel from town to town looking for shelter, hot meals, and the next paying rock and roll gig. So to some degree, that sounds like hobodom to me. And we see on the cover, I guess the main character, Ine, wearing not really a hobo hat, but he's wearing a hat, and he's carrying, the hobo pack, right? The little handkerchief or cloth that's tied up at the back on a string.
The bindle is the proper hobo term.
Okay, the bindle. See, and I know that you're, as you've said in a previous episode, an expert in hobo.
I don't think I'm an expert, but hey,
well, you're friends with Kyle.
I'm an aficionado.
Aficionado, yeah. But yeah, so this is the second instance, I would argue, of hobos in this month's previews.
Oh, yeah.
And then let me see, in the Dynamite section on page, let me get there, 336. This is something that I wanted to mention just because Bill Willingham is a part of it. And the subject matter doesn't necessarily appeal to me, although it could be interesting. I may get it. Again, written by Bill Willingham and Cesar Razek. This is The Greatest Adventure, issue number 1. And so basically what Willingham is doing here is taking characters from
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Edgar Rice Burroughs, his various creations, not just Tarzan, and bringing them together. And there's a one-page, I think on 130 or 337, brief interview with Willingham, and he basically is talking about the premise and how he came up with the idea. And in essence, he's saying, why not? So, it could be fun. Yeah,
so it takes Tarzan, John Carter of Mars, Pellucidar of Venus, and I can't remember who the other one is.
David Innes of Pellucidar.
Oh, wait, no, yeah, so David Innes of Pellucidar, and so I got the other one wrong. So who's the other one? Carson just those three. Venus. Carson of Venus, John Carter of Mars, David Innes of Pellucidar. Yeah. So, I think that'll be curious because when in reading those, so what I've read of those stories, I always found Carson, John Carter, and David Innes to be relatively interchangeable. Not necessarily that distinguished from one another. So I'll be curious to see how Willingham handles that. And I think Dynamite is doing a lot in this. We're seeing now doing a lot of bringing together a variety of their properties into single series. So they've done the King features characters in a variety of works, a variety of crossovers that have Flash Gordon and Mandrake and the Phantom and so on in them, and Jungle Jim and Prince Valiant. They also have this month the Sovereigns, which is a new miniseries featuring their Gold Key characters, which they haven't been doing much with for a while.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
And that first issue, or the 0 issue, is $1, so that could be worth checking out. And then, so taking their Burroughs licenses and putting them together into one story, I think they've got another couple ongoing miniseries that have these team ups going on as well. So we'll see. I think that's an interesting way to approach those licensed properties anyway.
Yeah. And then if we mosey on down to page 356 in the Drawn in Quarterly section, there are a couple things that I want to mention. One is the next in their Kitaro releases from Shigeru Mizuki. This book is Kitaro and the Great Tanuki War. Mm-hmm. And, I really like Mizuki's work and the character Kitaro. I've been getting these collections, and the thing about them is that, there's a lot of material in there. For instance, this one is 176 pages, but they're fairly compact in terms of the size, right? So it's not going to take up that much space on the shelf. And it's something that is somewhat comparable to the size of the Astro Boy collections that Drawn in Quarterly are doing. Yeah, so that's good. Mm-hmm. But something else that I'm even more excited about in the Drawn in Quarterly section is another issue of Jason Lutz's Berlin. And this is number 20. Now, this is the thing about Berlin. It comes out so infrequently that I swear whenever I see it solicited, because, Drawn in Quarterly often resolicits. In fact, most of their solicits are things that have been out for a while. But every now and again, when they come out with something with Berlin, it's like, no, it's not new. It's just something that came out previously. When is the latest? What's the last issue that came out and when? But apparently, I guess this is a new issue because the solicits, I can't remember what number they're up to, but it says, with its 20th issue, one of the biggest graphic novel events of the early 21st century is fast approaching, the completion of Jason Lutz's epic Berlin series. So I just assumed that this is new because I can't remember where the last one left off.
Yeah, do you remember how many issues it's planned for?
I don't know, but I know there have been 2 book collections so far.
Right, but this says it's coming to its conclusion, and I can't remember if it was 21 issues. So maybe there's one issue left.
Right. But, and I don't want to be cynical here, but as given the scheduling of when these come out, it says the end is fast approaching. I wonder what their definition of fast is.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be 24 issues. So
24 issues.
Yeah.
So. Okay, well, I hope we see them within the next year or so. This would be great. I'd love to see this wrapped up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be a couple years at least.
Yeah,
maybe 2 issues a year at the most.
Then I wouldn't have used the phrase "fast approaching."
Yeah,
but then again, I'm not writing the solicit, as we've pointed out abundantly on this episode. Mm-hmm. And then one more before we get to the Fantagraphics section, and this is on page 360 in the Fanfare Ponent Mon section, and this is Face by Rosario Vallejos. And the solicit, it seems really interesting. It says, let's face it, what is it that identifies you to those who surround you? Your lovers, friends, family, or colleagues, even strangers. What attracts or repulses them? Is it what they look at or what they see? What do you see when you look into a mirror? Rosario Vallejos looks closely at this topic and wonders about life without a face. In her own words, quote, "Face is a magical autobiography about identity, the escape of oneself toward love, and the flight to fit in and be normal in our society. She does not tread carefully and maybe reflects some of the doubts and fears in your own face." So this seems interesting. Now, I'm not familiar with Vallejos as a creator, but I am familiar with Fanfare and Ponent Mon because when they, I guess, co-publish something together, at least I'm familiar with their manga stuff. A couple of months ago, Shay and I reviewed Jiro Taniguchi's A Distant Neighborhood, but Fanfare, Ponent Mon does other things as well. Their stamp on this had me hooked, and then reading the solicit, it just sounds really intriguing to me, so I'm definitely interested in checking this out.
Okay.
And then we get to Fantagraphics.
Yeah, I only had two or three things to mention in Fantagraphics. One is on page 362, What Parsifal Saw, a new book by Ron Reger Jr. Mm-hmm. And this is collecting much of his shorter work that he's done since 2004, I guess, which was 2012, which is when he put out the cartoon Utopia, which is also getting a new softcover edition. I know I tend to read Reger's stuff in when it's in the the Best American Comics volumes, because almost always when he puts out a short work, it shows up in there.
Right.
So that's where I mainly follow him. So these collections are nice to get that all together.
Yeah, and now that you mention that, it seems like about the only memories I have of reading Reger's work have been in collections, in anthologies of some sort.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. What was the other one that you were particularly interested in Fantagraphics? And
then just below that is the next volume of All Time Comics from Josh Baer, Bullwhip #1 with art by Ben Mara and comic legend Al Milgrom. And then they're doing, I guess, one issue a month, rolling out those All Time Comics series. And then on the next page, 363 is...
Well, hold on. You didn't mention that one of the covers, the variant covers, is going to be by Gilbert Hernandez and Tony Millionaire.
Yeah. And that's a secret cover, top secret cover.
Yeah, that will be... Now, see, when it says top secret cover, it says top secret cover by Gilbert Hernandez. But then under the title, it says that the cover is by Gilbert Hernandez and Tony Millionaire, which I think is an interesting combination, a pairing. So I hope it's the both of them and not just Gilbert. I mean, Gilbert's good enough, but
yep.
I want to see what happens when you throw Millionaire into the mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then on the next page is a new work by Casanova Frankenstein called Purgatory.
Right. And speaking of best American Comics, we pointed him out quite extensively when we discussed the last volume.
Yep. And that's it for me in Fantagraphics.
Yeah. So you weren't interested in the very top solicit Zanardi by Andrea Pezenza?
No, I wasn't. I didn't get a lot out of that. So, but because Fantagraphics probably is worth checking out.
Yeah. Well, the way they describe. See, I'm not familiar with Pezenza in his work, but they describe him as, I guess, the Italian equivalent of a Mobius in France or a Robert Crumb in the U.S. So, I mean, right there, that's something worth checking out. But I've never heard of him. Maybe I should have. But it says he's never been translated and published in English until now.
Yeah.
So that has the word event stamped all over it.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, on the next page is First Second. The next volume in Faith Erin Hicks's Nameless City series, or at least in this series, I guess it's called the Nameless series. Volume 2 is called The Stone Heart. Now, Andy Wolverton and Gwen a few months ago discussed the first volume, The Nameless City, and they raved about it. And I haven't read it, but on their recommendation, I got a copy, but I haven't had the chance to read it yet. And so now we get volume 2. And again, I mentioned earlier Faith Erin Hicks, and so here we have more of her presence in this issue of previews.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So where do you go next?
I go to NBM. How about you?
390. I think that's where I go. No. Right before that, I go to Kodansha, because Kodansha has, and this is on 383, Volume 4 of Shuzo Oshimi's Happiness. Now, I haven't read Happiness yet, but I'm curious about it from what I've read about it, and this is a title that Shay and I just may discuss on an upcoming episode of the manga series.
Okay.
And the problem with Shay and I deciding what we're going to discuss on the manga show is that if we pick an ongoing series and we wait too long, then another volume, like Volume 4 of Happiness, is going to come out, and that gives us more work to do in prepping for the show.
Yep.
So you got to strike that proverbial iron.
Yeah, that's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah. But, okay, so then I next go to NBM.
Which is on 393. Man, my handwriting was terrible in my notes for this. I can't tell 1s from 7s or 9s from 8s. So under NBM, we have Look by John Nielsen. Mm-hmm. And the book as described here. Artie is a droid programmed to endlessly perform a single task left in a world abandoned by humans. He is starting to wonder what meaning his task has, but when he and his only friend Owen, a robotic bird, cast aside the only lives they've ever known in search of a brighter future, they encounter others that want nothing but to hold tight to the past. So it's an interesting, I guess, kind of a Wall-E spin on a post-apocalyptic world in which there are only robots and no humans.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think of Wall-E.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it's a lot different from Wall-E, but the way that the solicit reads, you can't help, if you know Wall-E, you're thinking Wall-E, mm-hmm. Wall-E as you're reading this, and so now I have that in my head. So, the Wall-E book from NBM.
Yep.
But it looks interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then on that same page, in the no-brow section, there is something that I think is worth checking out, and this is Audubon, On the Wings of the World. This is written by Fabien Grelou with art by Jeremy Royer. And so it covers the life of John James Audubon.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to do a graphic novel about such a great, illustrator.
Right.
So I'd be curious to see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm. And then I go next to Oni. Do you have anything before that?
No, I don't have anything till Pantheon, so go ahead.
Okay. On page 398 in the Oni section, we get a soft cover edition of Anthony Johnson's The Coldest City. Now, this is actually it's a 2-page spread for this. It is the Coldest City and then the Coldest Winter. And I have not read this. Have you?
No.
This series? They're really playing it up in such a way that, and I've heard of it before, and then seeing this solicit, it's like, oh my God, I'm remiss for not having read it, because they have all these endorsements from the likes of Alan Moore, Greg Rucka,
mm-hmm.
Kieran Gillen. It's like, I got to check this out. I didn't know if you knew anything about this.
Well, we've talked about it before. This is the second time they've solicited this.
I thought that, okay, when I saw this, am I remembering correctly, or is this one of those kind of deja vu kind of things where, I think that it happened before, but it really didn't?
Yeah, but it doesn't say offered. It doesn't say offered again, which is confusing. But I do remember these things distinctly. They weren't played up as much. It did mention that there was a movie coming out of The Coldest City, and then the prequel to The Coldest City, The Coldest Winter, is being solicited, and that comes out in May, at the end of May. So yeah, these are spy espionage graphic novels. Yeah, I mean, I think that they're probably worth checking out. But yeah, I hadn't read The Coldest City before.
Yeah. And then another thing in Oni that I'm interested in, especially now that it has been collected, it's going to be collected in trade paperback, and this is on page 401, and this is Brik, B-R-I-K, and this is written by Adam Glass and Michael Benson with art by Harwinder Singh. And, I think at one point you and I had discussed the possibility of discussing issue number 1 of Brik back last year, but for whatever reasons, we decided not to include that. Maybe we just already had enough for that week. But I know that I was interested in this because I think it's an interesting premise. It says, when Drew, a 12-year-old Jewish boy from Yonkers, loses his beloved grandfather to anti-Semitic gang violence, he turns to tradition, anger, and Kabbalah to serve vengeance. Conjuring a supernatural defender to protect his city brings Drew unimaginable power. Power he may not be able to control. As the gangsters grow closer to discovering the identity of Yonkers' new vigilante and the soul within the golem begins to take permanent hold of the creature, Drew must decide what's more dangerous, the devil you know or the savior you don't. I like this. I want to read this entire series now because, I have a particular interest in Jewish comics, and especially narratives that take Jewish tradition, Jewish icons, and give them kind of interesting twists. But, this on the surface doesn't seem that unusual, but I'm drawn to it, and I want to see what this is about.
Yeah, I think I remember when that first issue was solicited, you talked about that in relationship to the kind of golem myth that's being dealt with in that series.
Yeah. And then after that, I do go to Pantheon.
Yeah, and so there's one book under Pantheon, Imagine Wanting Only This by Kristen Radke. It is, as it says, a gorgeous graphic memoir about loss, love, and confronting grief. And it's the story of how Radke, while she was in college, her beloved uncle died, and she returns to this mining town for his funeral, and that gets her interested in the idea of kind of ruined places that she travels to around the world, deserted cities and so on. I like that idea, and I think Radke's art looks really fabulous.
Yeah, I think we should discuss this when it's released.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I go next to page 405.
Okay.
SelfMadeHero, and we have another one of their biographies. This is Josephine Baker, and we've mentioned this before on the show, haven't we?
Maybe.
Somewhere, it seems somewhat familiar, because, okay, this is written by Jose Luis Boquet and with art by Cattell Muller. And maybe I'm misremembering, but I think that this may have come up, and you seem to ask the question. This is probably published in France, right, previously? Mm-hmm. And I said probably so. But maybe I'm just dreaming this. I'm dreaming about the podcast now. We do so much of it. But yeah, this does look interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there may have been another Josephine Baker biography. I'm not
really
sure. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, my brain's not functioning right now, so you could tell me anything and I'd buy it.
Okay, I go next to 436. Do you have anything before that?
No, I don't have anything till 449.
Okay, yeah. Now, Yeah, on 436, this is the Toon Books section, and they have a new release, and this is by Kevin McCloskey, Something's Fishy. And this is, an all-age book, and I point this out for a couple reasons. One, this is yet another title that the folks at the Young Reader series may just discuss. It's something that I know that Gwen and Andy Wolverton have really sung the praises of Toon Books. They really love the work here. But I also wanted to point this out because Francois Moulet, who is someone that we talked quite a bit about in last week with Resist, is also behind Toon Books. So it's worth mentioning that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also something I just realized on the same page, and I didn't notice it until just now, but under Toonhound Studios, there is a solicit for The Hues Volume 1 Spectrum as a trade paperback, and this is by Alex Heberling. The reason I mention this is that Sean and I, several months ago, discussed The Hues on our webcomic series, and I did not know that they were releasing a trade of this. So, we both enjoyed this, so I would also recommend this in hard copy. This is worth checking out.
Yep.
And then 449, which is Uncivilized Books.
Right. This solicits something that I've known is coming out for a while, but I'm glad to see it solicited here. A new book by Gabrielle Bell, Everything is Flammable. Right. So this is the first full-length graphic memoir from Bell. So it's not short works. It is a single full-length story.
Yeah, and that's interesting because if you look at her other books, right, the collections, I mean, I think one could make the argument that those were, depending on how you define it, graphic novels and autobiographical to some degree, perhaps. But they're calling this the first full-length graphic memoir. Now, right before I left Texas to come here to Charlotte, I got a review copy of this. So not the finished, but I have not had the opportunity to read it yet. So I'm really looking forward to this. I brought it with me.
Well, I didn't get one, so.
Well, I asked special for it. I bought a couple things from Tom at Uncivilized, and so he mentioned this and then sent this to me. So
sure.
I thank him.
Whatever.
Yep.
I don't, because I can get it.
Well, hey, I didn't get a Voodoo Book 2.
I know that's the one thing.
Voodoo.
That's the one thing that I got that you didn't get. Everything else.
You got a few other books that I didn't get.
Okay.
They just kind of messed up. And that's all I have in the comics section.
I'm done altogether. So if you have more stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, the only other things I would mention, I guess, this is in the book section on 469. Two titles, and they both are and aren't new. And they're both from University Press in Mississippi. And this is John Lentz, Asian Comics, and then Aldo Regalato's Bending Steel, Modernity and the American Superhero. Now, both of these works came out a few years ago in hard copy, or in hardbound editions. And so, as most University Press books in hardbound editions or hardcover, quite expensive. But now we're going to get soon, I think in the spring, both of these are coming out, softcover editions of Lentz Asian Comics and Regalato's Bending Steel. So much more affordable. Yep.
And while we're there just for a second on 470, there's a solicit for a DVD of the documentary Diagram for Delinquents about the comic scares in the 1950s. Have you ever seen this documentary?
I don't think so. I think I would have remembered it. I know that I've wanted to, and I don't think I've seen it and then forgot. But I think I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I've seen it. In fact, I have it, but it's available on DVD here for $16, and it's a really good documentary. It's really worth checking out.
Yeah. Is this something you could also check out on YouTube?
I'm not sure. I have a download of it I got from whoever put it out. But anyway, I'd recommend it.
So there you go. Andy and I, our romp through the February previews catalog.
Yep.
A lot of good things to check out. And, you know, as Andy pointed out at the top of the show, you can bet your bottom dollar. Do people say that anymore? I don't even know what bottom... I guess the last buck, right?
Yeah.
You can bet your bottom dollar. You can bet your bottom dollar that every single one of the titles that we discussed is going to be significantly discounted, some much more than others, at our sponsor's website, Discount Comic Book Service. Definitely go to dcbservice.com, and there you're going to find so many discounts your head will spin.
Yeah.
And that has something to do with bottom dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And other cliches. And then after you do get your comics there, get in touch with us and let us know what you're going to be reading. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you can leave us a voice message online via SpeakPipe, and it's really easy to use. Or you can be more difficult about it and pick up the phone and dial 4153-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
That's right, or you can get a hold of us by email. We are 2guys@comicsalternative.com. You can get a hold of us individually. I'm Andy at comicsalternative.com.
And I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com.
And you can also check out our Twitter feed at @2guys with PhDs.
That's right, but you can also find us on Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can find us on TuneIn, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, and on Google Play Music. But you can still find every single one of our podcast episodes, as well as the reviews and comics-related commentary that we post on our blog, simply by going to our website, which is comicsalternative.com.
That's right. All the ways to get a hold of us. Let us know how we're doing and find out what we're doing.
That's right. And we do like to hear from you. And, you know, whether you tell us about comics that you're reading or your experiences at attending marches, do get in touch with us.
Yep.
And we will be back next week with more comics alternative goodness. Until then, I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy. See ya.